Hey, it's Chris from Crisscrossing at Rainbow Bridge. Hello, fellow Earthlings. I love what somebody said recently. I can't remember what her channel's name was, but I think she introduced herself and she said, "Hello, fellow blobs," or something like that. And that really made me giggle, but I can't steal it because, it's hers. But I love that she said that. So I haven't really posted videos too much this week, but I have been recording videos this week. So I will be posting them. I think they do need a few edits. I actually have been creating videos quite a bit lately, as compared to before. So not probably not every single day, but every 2 or 3 days I've been making a video. Um, and I don't know that I'm going to take the time to learn how to edit YouTube videos or any videos really at this time. Um, but if I do, then I will. If not, then what I'll probably end up doing is just clipping off parts of the video because a lot of them are pretty long. And long videos are actually really good, in my opinion, if they have content that's helpful to people. So I'll try to cut out the content that's more just me sort of babbling and not always being service to the greater good. Sometimes my stream of consciousness, if you will, um, talks a lot. Anyway, so this video in particular is wanting to touch upon um, challenges that people might have when they experience and navigate symptoms of being divergent. And these same symptoms can arise in people that have experienced traumas. Uh, you don't have to have complex PTSD to have these symptoms. For some people, they have a one-off incident one time, and it affects them profoundly. Some people may have had a lifetime of trauma or, child abuse that was ongoing, and we all respond differently to traumatic events. So, what I'm saying is that there are diagnostic criteria in the DSM that give you symptom clusters and timelines um, that help us to define and describe some of the ways that people live their lives and experience themselves. But that does not have to define who. So when I'm using these labels, all I'm doing really is referring to um, the shared language, but that does not define you or me or anyone else. You are a human being who is having a human experience, and sometimes part of the human condition is navigating challenging experiences, and our responses to those challenging experiences are a normal response to an abnormal situation. So there's no judgment. And I said that to say this. Trauma response can often mirror other diagnostical criteria in the mental health industry. For instance, if somebody has had long-term child abuse and ongoing trauma as a young person, often their symptoms will be described as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. However, um, they may be on the autistic spectrum, and that might just go unnoticed or undiagnosed, uh, especially if they're high masking, which means that they live their lives as a performance and they learn certain scripts and certain facial expressions, or they might focus intently on building certain characteristics or aspects that can be seen as talented or gifted, so that other people don't recognize what they're really experiencing, which is a sense of self that is, this is my own experience, okay? So I'm just sharing my experience. Everybody's different. But for me, there was always this sense of self that was separate from everybody else, and I was perfectly fine being alone. I didn't think it was weird that I didn't have a group of besties or that I didn't want to hang out with the girls or whatever. Like, I did do those things, um, but it was really more of a performance because I knew that that's what was expected of me. I was actually just fine not hanging out with people unless I could sense that they were like me. So as an adult person, I have friends now today, And many of them do identify as either being on the autistic spectrum, having been diagnosed with ADHD, or may have been previously to as now it's just considered being on the autistic spectrum, but fudge cakes. I can't remember the diagnostic name of it. It was taken out of the DSM recently, but basically the word means like a high functioning person. What does high functioning even mean, right? Um, we're using definitions that describe roles and ways to function and behave in a society that denigrates those of us who are different. And so we learn to behave in a way that reflects what we think society wants. But oftentimes that's not the root actually are. So when we say high functioning or high masking, what we're really saying is those people are forcing themselves to appear different than their actual nature. Because if they showed their true nature, they would be rejected and dejected. And even if they don't particularly want deep social connections in the same way that normies do, um, we can really be talking about a form of genocide because society at large has a tendency to attempt to obliterate all things that they don't understand or that they fear. As a mental health professional, and I'm not giving any advice, this is just me as a human, me as a mental health professional, talking about the experiences that I've had in the field. Um, you know, one of my undergraduate degrees had, well, I had two focuses, and one of the focuses was called applied behavioral analysis. This can be used in a lot of different situations. It can be helpful in some situations, right? But I've always been a fan of other ways of working with people as a mental health clinician. Even if an individual has been diagnosed as being on the spectrum of autism, and let's say they're communicative but only in a minimal fashion, and they're not hurting anyone, they're not hurting themselves. I personally think that it is we, and by we I mean society at large, those people that have not been diagnosed with autism spectrum, those people who are considered to be neurotypical, that's where the problem actually is, in my because we have to meet in the middle somehow. If we were to flip the script and say that people with autism and ADHD and various forms of um, anxiety disorders, OCD, PTSD, um, sometimes even you might say personality disorders as well. Uh, and these are just diagnostic criteria. I don't like using words of diagnostic criteria to describe a person, but I'm just using it for the conversation. So a lot of people that have been described as falling into those categories, if we flip the script and say that those folks are the normal, and we're using normal, right? Those folks are the statistical norm. Okay, so out of 100,000 people, let's just flip the script and say that out of 100,000 people, 85,000 of them fall into those categories, and only 15,000 of those people are neurotypical, which means they do not experience those symptoms um, that might be described in some other post later. Flipping that script, we might have to educate the people who are um, neurodivergent on how to find a way to accept neurotypical, how to be kind to neurotypical, to have compassion for them. And then we might do the same thing, we might try to teach neurotypical people why their way of being is not acceptable, why it's wrong to be who they are and how they are, and why we should basically force them, whether it's through coercion or bribing them or just trying to convince them. But either way, we're going to try to make them be something that they're not. You can't force an oak tree to produce apples. You can't force a chair to become a table. A chair is a chair. You know it's a chair. A chair is for sitting. It's a chair. It's not going to turn into a table. And so, um, if that was what we thought of it in that way, it would seem really silly, right? But it's not any different than that. That is exactly what happens to people like me and many people who live in this world who right now may be hiding. I can remember having this sense that maybe I was an alien transplant, or maybe I was adopted, um, or something. Because even as a really, really little kid, like really, really young, I always felt like I was not just different, but like remarkably different. That my parents didn't need to know what was going on for me on the inside because it wasn't safe. And even as like a 3 year old, I somehow knew that I was different than my peers in preschool and I was different than everyone and that it had to be kept secret because I somehow instinctually knew that it would be unsafe um, to share the subjective internal experience. And so I've been playing that role my whole life, right? And now that I'm in my late 40s, I'm finally coming to recognize, and it took that long because life provided me with some really long, extended periods of time in which I was able to learn and grow. They were difficult and challenging. And so that's probably why I'm coming to these realizations now as opposed to while I was a teenager or whatever. But I'm recognizing now that high masking people are at a really high risk for a lot of health conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, um, etc. I can't think of them right now at this moment. But basically, what's happening is your body, from a physiological perspective, and your brain, which actually is extended throughout your whole body via your nervous system. So your brain extends itself through your spinal cord and through all of the nerves that extend throughout the entire body. So any place on your body that you can feel something, move something, that's an extension of your brain. So when you say the body and the brain are separate, they're not. They're connected. But regardless, returning back to the main point, people are high masking. It means that their body is under tension and stress at all times. And we often might experience things like um, autistic burnout, emotional exhaustion. We might even have, there are names that other people use for these things. I'm just going to use the words that I'm using now. But we might actually have, like, I call it like a flip out breakdown. I just kind of freak out. I start hand flapping, growling. I need to go into the closet, blanket, or I need to be in a fetal position and rock myself on the kitchen floor, the cabinet, and nobody should touch me or even I just need. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I don't. This doesn't happen as often as it used to, but it took me a long time to realize that this is autism. I am experiencing autistic burnout, and so I'm just sharing that because I think it's important that we have kindness in our heart and that we really stop and ask ourselves, we are in the room with another person and their energy just feels off and that makes us uncomfortable. Why are we really uncomfortable? What's actually going on with us that we are expecting that person to become a table? And they are a chair. And they are not asking you to turn into a chair because you're a table. They accept that you're a table. So let them be a fucking chair, you know? Um, this is a societal issue, not just an individual. I'm going to close off with this. I hope that this will be helpful to some people that I share part of my journey with you. I had a problem with being organized and having a lot of stuff in a lot of rooms of the house. And I have done so much reduction recently. I've gotten rid of a lot of clothing, whether it be through donation or just putting them into storage where they still exist, but they're not in my way anymore. Closet used to be so full that I couldn't even move the clothing at all. And now there's a whole fairly big amount of space where I can open this up and actually move things without having to wrestle with it, which is great. The floor of the closet, which you can't really see as clearly as I was hoping, is now empty. I used to have, well, there's a backpack, and yeah, these bags are here because I want them to be able to be away instead of on the floor. But other than those bags, which are bags that I use when I go out into the world, this closet floor is actually clear. The laundry basket is in there now, and so that means that the laundry basket is being used, but it's out of sight. And over here, we just have my exercise gear, a table that's been folded up and put away, and then we have this basically empty space. And I'm really working to keep it that way. It took me about a year and a half to clear out this room. And you can see on my bathroom cabinet, there's items there that do not go there, right? So this is what I like to call either ADHD or autistic sprawl. So what I've been doing is every day I'm taking 10 or 15 minutes and I'm just stopping whatever I'm doing, just stop and put the things inside the cabinets where they go and don't allow it to build up. So first thing in the morning and like right before bed, I do this thing that I like to call nesting. So I will have these weird random things around me, like if I want to journal or do artwork or do needlepoint, I'll have the items under the bed or on the side of the bed right there by the bedside table, and I'll set them there. Like for instance, right now, last night I thought that I would do some artwork, or maybe I might use these items on my feet. So that's where they ended up being left. That bedside table is pretty much clear. This bedside table is almost clear. There's just a few things there. And this table here is clear. The floor is clear. But there's a very easy way that this can become a mess all over again. And it only takes one little thing that does not go there, and you end up putting it there. And then before you know it, it's not just the one thing, it's two things, it's three things, it's four things. So I'm taking the time. It's funny that I'm making this video now because I just realized that this morning I only did this part way. So I'm doing it now as we speak. Well, as I speak. It's literally just taking the time to do these little things and allowing my ADHD to be a superpower instead of a form of disability. So I stop, and so it's actually really good that I'm getting this opportunity because I'm showing you in real time how this actually is working in my life. So I stop, I put the things away that need to be put away. So these little items that I just showed you. Sorry, not sorry. Those are brownies. Those are going to stay where they are because sometimes I get chocolate munchies in the middle of the night. So yeah, it's literally just a way of stopping and slowing down and letting the power of ADHD brain to work in my favor. So my ADHD brain, part of my brain that wants to be busy all the time and always wants a new experience, a novel experience. That part of my brain gets really bummed out if I don't have challenging and novel experiences on the regular, right? Because it has to do with the amount of serotonin that my brain naturally produces, the amount of GABA. There's different forms of GABA. In the most simple sense, GABA is a neurochemical that your brain produces that helps you to chill out. And serotonin, as I'm sure you've heard, is one of the feel-good happy hormones. And people with ADHD typically don't produce the same amount of serotonin and epinephrine also and gabapentin that people that are neurotypical do. Now, I might be somewhat inaccurate in what I'm saying. This is not medical advice. Sometimes I forget exactly what thing is or means, so please don't come at me for that. But this is literally in real time what it's like, right? When you're challenged. I'm going to stop and slow down long enough to grab my pajamas and put them on. This is literally managing symptoms. This morning, unfortunately, I made my bed, washed my face, brushed my teeth. Wait, no, yeah, I washed my face and brushed my teeth. I went down the dishes in the kitchen. I was down there for probably at least 20 minutes, and then came back up, and then get up in the bathroom cleaning, right? So because that just seems like the right thing to do. And so this is what happens, if you have a job where you're employed and you're going somewhere, this can be a superpower. It can also see there now my pajamas are there on the bed, folded nicely and neatly. I don't know what I'm doing with this camera. But yeah, um, this can be a superpower if you're able to harness it. But it can also be a really, really difficult challenge if you're not. So what I'm doing now is I'm really um, giving myself grace, but not so much grace that I don't, you know, have a mindfulness of the passage of time. There's a thing called time blindness, which could occur for many people. You don't have to be on the autistic spectrum, and you don't have to be diagnosed with ADHD or neurodivergent in any way to experience time blindness. Diagnostic diagnostic criteria. However, in a brief description, it is literally what it sounds like. So that's something that can be really challenging. And people might say, well, just set a timer or just put a reminder on your calendar. I don't think that they realize or recognize how fast people's brains actually work and how some people can be thinking about 12 different things at the same time, doing math computations in their head, thinking about, neuroscience or, biological industrial work, um, metaphysical foundations, quantum physics, whatever, while also having a conversation, while also reading a paper, while also listening to the television and a podcast or whatever. Like our brains are like beep, 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 and they're going super crazy fast, right? And that makes it hard to communicate also because you have to slow down and it's super uncomfortable to force yourself to slow down. You have to slow down to other people's speed. And it can make you impatient. It can make you appear to be rude to other people, but you're not trying to be rude. They just have a different set of rules than you do, right? So, as a person with self diagnosed autistic spectrum, I find that I really have to have a lot of scripts in my head. I have to remember social cues. I have to learn to stop talking or to walk away, or when to talk. Like, when is it appropriate to talk? What is it appropriate to say? And to whom? How much do you share? How much do you not share? And it can be really, really challenging. So I'm sharing this because, I used to have under my bed, it was just filled with stuff. In every drawer, it was jam packed with stuff, and it wasn't really organized um, because I was being challenged to slow down long enough to actually get it done. And one of the reasons why it took so long to get it done is because every time that I would start, um, there would just be too much actual like stuff, like physical stuff, and it would be just overwhelming, like overwhelming to the point of it would force me to shut down because I would have analysis paralysis. Um, every single goal appeared to me to be equally important, um, and I just couldn't, yeah, I couldn't break it down and say where do I start? What's the first thing I do? So I would be doing 1,000 things all day long, but never actually, well, not never, but often, not actually finishing any one thing. And that's a very disempowering place to be. What I did was I chose one area, one physical location, and started forcing myself to take the time to keep it clean. If you've ever had a child, uh, a spouse, partner, whatever, even a sibling, maybe even a parent that comes home from work, comes home from school, comes inside from playing, and they track in mud on the floor. They take their shoes off, in the middle of the floor. They take their jacket and their bag and they just put it wherever. They go in the kitchen. They grab a butter knife. They make some toast. They leave crumbs on the counter. They leave the butter knife there with the butter, etc. Right? If each one of us, whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, stops to take the time, wipe our shoes on the mat, take our shoes off right there if they're muddy, and just leave them there. Hang our coat, put our bag away, go to the kitchen, have our snack, wipe the counter down, clean the butter knife, or at least put it in the sink. Slow down to do these things, it helps. And if we are experiencing because we have too much stuff, we have to remember that our idea is not going to be the same idea of clean that the rest of the world has. And that is okay. That makes us awesome and unique and incredible. So in this journey, I've learned that at least for me personally, the best way for me to reduce my symptoms is to reduce my clutter. And when I walk into my room now, uh, it doesn't make the symptoms go away, but it makes it so that I'm not distracted on all the other little things that need to be done. Because that used to happen all the time. I would have to do some homework, for example, and I could not sit down to do my homework until I prepared my environment. And I had to have like this process. And then I would do my ADHD sprawl where I'd get all my textbooks and all my notes and everything and like spread them on a giant whiteboard or throw them on the floor like a homicide detective with crime scene photos or whatever. And I would need to do that, and I still do need to do that anytime that I'm going to focus on. However, when the environment is not cluttered, it means that my brain doesn't try to tell me that I need to go blah 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 blah. My brain looks around and says, "There's not a lot to be done." That doesn't mean that doesn't stop me from going. Oh, I have to vacuum the floor before I do my thing, or I have to go wipe this door down before I call back that job interview person or whatever. So it's not perfect, but I'm sharing this with you because it is possible to find ways to navigate how we are in the world. And I think the biggest place where I started was through unconditional love and unashamed self acceptance, self love, um, radical acceptance of myself, the way that I actually am, not the way that other people think I should be, or not based on some future goal or event. And by doing that, I have found that I'm living in my own world. I am creating the person that I am and the person that I want to be. That is up to me. People in my life might have thoughts or opinions, and my outside behavior, like how I interact with the world, does make a difference. Of course it does. Um, However, if I'm measuring myself by somebody else's yardstick, I'm always going to come up short. So instead of acting as if, faking it until I make it, I am now unabashedly me, unashamed. Um, I don't walk around saying, "Hey, I'm autistic," blah 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 blah. Well, I, I've been known to do that, but I think it's for me being loud and proud is how I show the world that people don't have to always conform precisely to what society wants, and society doesn't always have the expectation that you are going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole. So, with that being said, I send you all love and light. If you've been listening for this long, I sincerely thank you. And even if you only listen for 30 seconds and you won't ever hear these words, I also sincerely, I appreciate you. We're on this journey together. We're just on different parts of the path, okay? So give yourself grace. Remember that you are loved, that you remember that the light resides in you and you are the light just by simply existing. You make a difference in this world. You make a difference in other people's lives. That matters. You matter. And I'm grateful to you for doing what you do because your life touches just as my life touches yours. Remember that above all things is the most important and the most powerful tool that we will ever have. Nothing can stand greed, expectation, jealousy, not even anger. So remember that your emotions are messages. Don't ignore them, but just love yourself even if you're feeling angry or sad. Be who you are, how you are, and know that. Thank you so much for watching.